I'm Helen Bravo, and I'm a product manager for Checkmarks. We are an Israeli company. I came here the whole way from Tel Aviv to meet you. Thank you. And that's my first time in States, which is very impressive, like a movie. And I would like to talk to you about DevOps and security. Being a product manager, I actually see it in a very set of various perspectives. I also work with developments, with my developers that develop my product, and see their challenges and how they work and what they need. And I also see and meet a lot of customers. And I see their processes and their deployments and their needs from products. And I can tell you that customers are changing with the changing world. And they are not ready to wait for features and bug fixes for half a year like it was before, or 3 months for a version. You know, we all used to just go order our stuff on the net and get it mailed to our houses the next day. The same goes for software. You have it, give it to me. Why are you holding it there? I need it as fast as soon as possible. And that's where DevOps can in. DevOps can come to answer that need. So I would like to talk to you about what DevOps is and how DevOps come to our world and what do we do in security to cope with this new changed pattern of work. Tell me, how many of you here actually practicing DevOps? Oh, great. I hoped it will be more, but that's still good. How many of you thinking to go into DevOps? Continuous deployment. A few more. It's starting and then it's happening. And I can tell you that lots of my customers are already going and doing that. But what is DevOps for them? How do they, and how do we do and reach this rapidness of delivery? By what? By doing what? In the classic format of waterfall, the classic software development format, we develop a feature and we put it aside. We develop another one and we put it aside. We accumulate features and we make a version. Then we give a version to our testing and to our deployment department, who deploys it whenever they feel ready. And that usually takes at least weeks, if not months. And that's what actually not convenient anymore. So how DevOps solve that? DevOps come and say, don't accumulate. Don't hold features anymore. The feature is ready, deploy it. You just fix the bug, don't hold it, deploy it, give it to your customers. I actually have support people who raising the same problem to me as a product manager. They come to me and they say, okay, I saw this, developers just did it, they solved that bug. Why don't you just give it to us, we give it to our customers? And I just can't explain to them, okay, I have an overhead, a QA, the version is just in about a month from now. They don't want to hear it, they want their development. And that's what DevOps does. The development is ready, deploy it, give it to your customer. And that, actually, in big companies, can bring us to hundreds of features a day. Hundreds of features are developed and deployed. It sounds crazy, but it's happening. It's happening for big ones, and it's happening for small ones. Facebook and LinkedIn and Amazon are known to state that they do about 1,000 deployments of new developments a day. And Etsy and Twitter, very big pushers of secured continuous deployment. And Netflix, we will have Jason in next lecture talking about how Netflix do their magic. That's what DevOps is. DevOps is there. But we are security people here, right? So we are interested how security fits into this whole thing. And we have the traditional security controls. But how the traditional security controls fits into this DevOps environment, which is so dynamic, so fast, so disruptive. It's an actually very interesting question. What controls do we use today? What's in our toolbox? It's the penetration testing, it's a WAF as a solution, and the various code analysis. Let's look into them. Penetration testing, known to take time. Is there pen testers in the audience? How long it takes to make a 10 pages web application? Great. I have discussed the same exact size with one of my fellow pen testers, and he said exactly that, about a week. About a week at least takes to do a pen testing for a very small site. But usually sites are big, and you end up with 300 pages report and 3-week assessment time at least, and 2 weeks just to get it into development. I have had this discussion with one of our prospects who is doing DevOps, already practicing DevOps and still using pen testing. And I asked him, okay, the last time you did that, how did you manage it? How long it took you? And he told, okay, 3 weeks it was for an assessment, and then they are a good team. We had an analysis in 2 days, and then it took us 2 more weeks just to get every responsible in the same room and to get the division of the things to do and when everything is done and what's the highest priority and the whole discussion. 2 weeks just to get them together. Okay, that brings us to about 1.5 months, 2 months of the whole work. What happens in the meanwhile? You're releasing a feature, at least a feature a day. Okay, let's take a slow DevOps. Well, you can go for web application firewall. Web application firewall, having this advantage aside, is known for an extensive need for configuration. So how this fits the situation when you release a feature every 5 minutes? And you know, we had a discussion, we had a panel actually of WAF vendors in our local OWASP chapter about 2 months ago. It's interesting, but a lot of WAF vendors are located in Israel. So we had Amichai Schulman, CTO of Imperva, and then we had an F5 application architect there, and Akamai, and a few smaller ones. And they had discussions about WAF challenges and then questions. So I came and I have asked them the exact same questions. How do WAF cope with continuous deployment? And you know what? They were stunned. They didn't really have a good answer. And after the panel ended, one of them came to me and told me exactly that. Thinking continuous integration, think continuous configuration. That's what happens with WAF. So what are we left with? We have the code analysis. Code analysis has various solutions. There is a dynamic analysis, a static analysis, binary and source code, and different stuff. And being a vendor, I acknowledge that they all have a reputation of being slow. It's not pen testing, and we are not talking weeks here, but it's still not fast enough. It's hours of setup time, and it's hours of running time, and that's analysis time, and the false positive, and all this stuff. So how that fits this process? And the process is very, very disruptive because you have this automated and you have developers constantly working on a new feature and deploying it. It's like, remember the Smurfs? Not the movie Smurf, this is a sexy Papa Smurf. No, the cartoon from my childhood, I guess yours too. What they had this fire, and they had this river, and they need to water out the fire. So they build a human chain, and they pass the bucket from one to another and back, from one to another and back. That's the process. Now imagine the security guys coming and checking every bucket. Ooh, what's there? What will it do to security? What will it do to the process? That what will it do to the process. That will ruin the process. So what are we left to do? Do nothing. That will bring us to 1999 when I was a developer. And I can tell you we don't want to go there. The solution is to bring the security from the bottom, to bring it by default, and to make it part of your secure software development lifecycle. to base a secure development lifecycle, to start thinking security as you think in development from the architecture point. And let's go step by step what needs to be done together. First of all, plan for security. And planning for security means several steps. You look at what technology you choose when you start. Today, even coming to choose a language, you can take into consideration the security patterns or the security bridges the language have, and the frameworks and the APIs you are using. For example, PHP, newest version, are known to deprecate unsecured patterns from the previous versions. So when you choose it, look into it. Look what solutions for security a language brings with it. The same goes for frameworks. Some frameworks, actually not some frameworks, almost every framework has security breaches. Security breaches and fixes for the breaches. Okay, fixes and solution for unsecured pattern usage. You map what you have and you see if you can figure out how can it be solved. We have customers, most of them Japanese. Japanese are very, very precise in what they do. They run a quality analysis on their entire code base to map their unsecured patterns of frameworks and languages, and then they go and look for a solution for those patterns. Then you have different portions of code. The importance for security of your test library is definitely not that important as a password change mechanism or credit card proceeding mechanism or user authentication mechanism, right? So when changes are done in those mechanisms, it's much more important to be tracked, to be reviewed, and to be measured than other mechanisms like FAQ, for example. So when you map them, you can put it as part of a process, flags, that when changes are applied on those modules, trigger a code review, trigger a testing, a special testing, trigger a separate run for those modules. And the last one is not the least, of course, it's regulatory problems. We all know that eventually we will get into getting a regulations approval. But a lot of people don't really plan for that from the beginning, which causes a lot of problems later, and a lot of changes, and a lot of work to be done to apply these changes on already structured code. And we have a customer with a very built and precise security system, live person. They're producing online customer support centers. And they have really incredible set of security controls and measures in their system. So they actually do the planning from the beginning, and they anticipate security problems. For example, if they make a production for European Union, and the European Union requires for any software that goes in to opt in for cookies and not just automatically deploy it. And that needs to be designed, needs to be taken into consideration from the beginning and needs to be checked. And that's exactly what LivePerson is doing. They are running also at the end of their process a test for those controls. So that goes for planning. The second step, the next step, is to engage your developers and be engaged there for them. And actually, I have been strongly advised to remove this picture by our marketing guys because they told me, you're crazy, they are all guys there, they will see the ring, they will run away. But first of all, it's nice to see some women there. And second, you're still here. So let's talk about relationship between the developer and the security group. And how many of you here are developers? Whoa! That's impressive. And security people? And both? great. That's just really, and I actually heard by another lecturer here today that developers are getting more and more involved in security. And that's very nice, and that's great to hear that. Though we work a lot with security groups in companies, and I see them struggling to get developers engaged because, in general, security group produces for developers more work. Is it so, developers? You see it, you're nodding. Security produces more work. So how do you explain, how do you make it, how do you make your point that you're not just a bureaucrat that came to bother them with some obstacles, but you're really trying to reach something serious? Like, bring them with you, send them more articles, bring them with you to OWASP. And one company that I also familiar with, they established a SED program, Security Administrator. For each development team, they have chosen a security administrator. They have especially trained those administrators for security. They put them through training of vulnerabilities, of how to read vulnerabilities, of the risk, and of vulnerable patterns in the code. So the next step would be for those administrators to represent the security group and everyday coding problems. And if it doesn't work, another option that they have offered is send one of them to Black Hat. And you know, when you see the whole hacking cool stuff going at Black Hat, yeah, you just can't you can't resist it. You understand what's it for. The second thing, which actually works great, is to share your problems with them. When your house is on fire, someone is attacking, take the logs, first of course handle the attacks, and then take the logs and share that with them. Show them what's really going on, that there are real bad guys out there who are trying to get in. And that's what their software should stop. That's what they can prevent by secure coding. And then, just by sharing that, you will get their attention. You will get their cooperation. The second thing is to help them handling. When you bring a bunch of results, okay, you have this and that and this and that here, go figure how do you fix it. It's not easy. It's usually not wide knowledge of how to fix XSRF and how to figure it out and how to fix it and how to prevent it next step. Be there for them, be there when they come for questions, and help them be there for one another. We have customers who established a collaboration platform just to handle security issues. So they help their they help their developers to help each other. When you have a problem, post how you solve it. So your colleague from another team will be able to read it and to prevent it for his next step, or it will help him. It will help him not to get there even. We have customers using Jive for that, and Confluence, and even IRC. It's a good enough platform for collaboration. The third step would be to arm developers, to give them tools so they will be able to do this fight for themselves. And this geeky guy is definitely going to be a developer. Maybe he already is. What arms can go and can be good for that matter? Secure frameworks. We have got today a pretty nice range of secured frameworks. We have a Spring Security and Jazz and Apache Shiro, and for PHP we have for Symfony a good set of security libraries, and Ruby on Rails is also presenting today a very wide range of security solution for input validation, for authentication, for session management, tools built in for securing your code from a very base. And of course, being an OWASP here, a very, very powerful tool is OWASP SAPI. OWASP SAPI provide security framework tools for various languages. And it's actually very, very, even more powerful than the built-in security tools in existing frameworks. The same LivePerson guy, the security, they did an amazing thing with the SAPI. They took, they work in Java, so they took SAPI and they put it inside their business flow, and they made a library which they enforced on their developers to use. And when, and they are also running an analysis at the end of their, at some sort of a process, and they check that actually this pattern enforced and used by developers. This way, they really get it when the software gets to the analysis, it's already very, very protected because of this built-in tool. But that brings us, that brings us actually to the tools that can check what's going on, what's happening, and then the SCA tools. That's right, we have discussed it as as tools that require time. But actually, there are tools today that are adjusting to this new environment and to this new world. For example, we have a great example of Twitter, who use a tool called Brakeman, an open source tool, and they are running it on each and every commit. And that's the important thing here with those tools. You have to run it in small chunk. The tool should be capable to handle small changes in the code. It shouldn't require the whole project to be set up now and scanned for hours and hours, but it should be capable to take just the difference between and just what the developer done and scan it and point out what are the security vulnerabilities in this specific code that been just posted by the developer. And the very important thing here is, of course, rapid response, because we are talking every few minutes delivery. We don't want the process to be delayed just for security scanning. The important ingredient of DevOps is automation. Automation not for security, but automation in general. Did you think how, in generally, they reach this ability to deploy feature every 5 minutes? We develop, right? We don't have it ready. We possibly can't just deploy it in a few minutes. That's done mostly by automation. Because a lot of work done in the development today, it's actually repeating itself. Why not automating it? If it doesn't require creativity or thorough analysis that only can be done by a human being, just automate it. Automate it by development, by test-driven development, by writing unit testing, by running an automation testing tool, and the same goes for security. Security should fit into standard continuous deployment automated process. And that can go for SAS tools and for DAS tools, for static code analysis and for dynamic code analysis tools that are capable to produce responses in a very short time. How can you integrate it? It's mostly done by build managers. All this process is built on automation of build and automation of testing. And that is done by Jenkins and Bamboo and TeamCity and other products like that just automate the process of build. And that's how this process in generally looks. You have a developer who is working on his IDE, which can be whatever you are choosing. And then when development is done, he commits his code. He commits the code, and that code commitment and the committed code goes to source control. From source control, it's pulled by a build manager, and that triggers a build. Once the build is finished, it automatically runs set of tests, and if test fails, the build fails actually, and that goes back to the developer. And that happens several times a day in that environment. Build, you developed what you intended, but it didn't pass the tests. So you have to take it back and you fix it. And that goes around until it's ready for deployment. And that's how they keep the quality. So the security should fit into the same process. Security can fit in few stages to this process. It can fit into the pre-commit stage, where the developer is responsible for testing his own code and for checking it for security. Either it can be done by code review, or it can be done by SCA tools like Brakeman, or we have the solution as a vendor by small chunks updates testing, and I'm sure that other vendors have their own solutions for the same. And then you perform when you are sure that what you did is good enough. You commit the code into source repository. When the code is committed, the build is triggered. And the same tool, like Jenkins or Bamboo, is triggering the scan of the dynamic testing and for the source testing. Because several developers could commit at the same time, and then you have to run the whole process again. But then it's important for the dynamic tool to be tuned with and take the tests from positive testing written for the regular testing tools. Like Burp, for example, it can monitor the positive test running, and then run the negative tests on the inputs that were not used by the positive testing. So it's like a self-learning environment. And also, static analysis can be run here too, as on the updated part, because you can actually see here now a bigger picture. You see, the scanner can scan few commits and point out several vulnerabilities that go through different modules, and that brings much more result than each and specific development's production scanning. And then you can still use the old tools. The old tools are not canceled by no one, and still comes in handy. The penetration testing is still in use by all customers whom I know. They still go once in a while, about once a year or twice a year for pen testers, and order the pen testing work. But you know what? It brings them almost no results, because they have the security incorporated in their SDLC, in their software development lifecycle. So almost nothing is there. I have another customers who have actually very interesting solution of offering pen testing for the customers. You want to check us? You are invited. Go bring your pen testers. I will be more than happy to hear your results. And he can afford that because he knows that most of customers in their pen testing find nothing. He has it already figured out in SDLC. WAF, it's a pretty good solution for more stable parts of the web application. You have more static pages that don't change that often, or you can also do the fine-tuning once in a while to do the configuration that will still guard. WAF is not getting totally disposed in case of continuous deployment. And there is a good old code review, which actually can come in handy, especially for those modules, if you remember, that are especially touchy for security problems. For authorization modules and credit card handling modules, if you have a change there, trigger a code review by another customer, trigger a code review by security team. And for those models, it's worth it. It's worth it because it will be then the most, you will be the most sure that you did it all. You did it the deepest way you could. That as far as it goes. So I see I have been running a bit fast, and I have got to summary, which will leave us a lot of time for a discussion, which I would really like to hear your opinion and how you live it. And generally, DevOps is here, and I see you doing that, and I see our customers and big companies doing that. And just by us talking here, Amazon deployed like 75 features at that time. So security shouldn't be compromised in that case. But it doesn't have to happen all in one time. You can start small and go and widen it. And usually, if you don't start small, it's just hard to implement because it's like putting security almost everywhere. You have to fit it in each and every part of your development. Start with what's more accessible and go and deploy it one by one. For me, the three main takeaways of this talk is the planning. The planning that should be done carefully and should be the basis of the whole building of secure development. And the development, the developers' engagement. The developers' engagement is extremely important because they are the main people in DevOps. The whole responsibility actually goes to them because there is no one after them checking, no QA, no security teams checking their code. They develop it, they deploy it. It's very important for them to acknowledge the importance of security. And the automation. The second very important stage of DevOps is to bring security to be part of automation, of automated process. That's as far as it goes. What do you think? Any questions? It's like everything is so clear or so boring.
I guess I see the obvious improvement of including security in the development lifecycle, but it also seems that it's relying very heavily on automated scanning, where we know from industry experience that automated scanning always falls short of in-depth security testing. So are you saying that should be done on this periodic pen test, or where does that get?
It should be done everywhere. It's actually, that's the whole thing about security, not just in DevOps, in general. You can't do security just by doing only one thing. You probably all know that, exactly as you know that pen testing is not covering you from all parts. Okay, so either you're doing DevOps or you're doing waterfall, or it doesn't matter what you're doing, you should use several tools. You should use dynamic testing, and you should use automated tools that bring you the basic data, and then you bring a BOF, and then you bring a pen testers who cover you from outside. That's something that you should have in any case, waterfall or DevOps. So that's how probably most people do today, and that's not changing for DevOps.
Seems like one of the common problems is all the upstream stuff. That okay, you're building an app, but you've got a bunch of frameworks that you're feeding into it, and of course the reason you have a patch management cycle that takes too long already is because you have to make sure it doesn't break what your features are. So if this becomes more standard, how do you see ingesting that kind of change without breaking what you have? You have automated ways of doing that as well.
I'm not quite getting what you're implying to this, the framework part and the changes. The changes coming from the framework or just...
You talk about Amazon put up 75 changes during this talk, and they used frameworks. They didn't build it from the ground up.
That's right.
Getting that level of change from your frameworks in as well, does any of this help, or at least can, just because you can put out 75 changes a day, can your consumers take that if they're not a front-end place?
The framework here is actually a tool. Okay, you do need to keep up with the framework patches and the framework updates. And that should be part of your planned development lifecycle. You should check what's going on with this framework and what patches are released. And sometimes you will take a bit longer than 5 minutes, to incorporate the patches inside. But as long as you're monitoring that, that will secure you from getting the breaches that are caused by the frameworks. You have to incorporate it as well as you incorporate outside APIs or even your internal APIs. That goes for frameworks exactly the same way. Thank you very much. I guess you will have a longer break.